Welcome, everyone. My name is Max Medina, and this is Architecture for the Soul. Today, we have a very special guest. This is the voice of the Creative Insider podcast. His name is Georgi, and Georgi is a social content creator that his passion started with his accidental discovery of the Joe Rogan experience. And actually, he's a great architect that has a master in actually he is from he is doing this master in Italy, and his podcast, the purpose of the Creative Insider is to help creativities in all industries find their own path to the creative fulfillment by helping avoid the mistakes we made ourselves. So basically, it's a platform, then it's a place of sharing, learning, and curiosity, and building a network. The podcast helps us to discover the creative journeys of the invited people. So, Georgie, welcome, and it's great to have you, man. I really like your podcast, and I think it's a great podcast. And I would like to know how you start in this adventure. Well, first, who is Georgie, and how do you start with this adventure of the podcast?
Hi, Max. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm happy that you started a podcast yourself because, as you said, I'm a podcast maker and a podcast lover. And yeah, how it all started. So I've had a quite rough introduction to the field of architecture because, as you said, I studied in Italy, but I'm originally from Bulgaria, so I'm a kid of immigrants. And I didn't have any connection in this field, and I didn't have any guidance. And I ended up in Germany. Currently, I'm based in Germany, where I changed several jobs. And at some point, where I stabilized my situation, I discovered the Joe Rogan experience, where there are a lot of interesting conversations. And I thought, what can I do? What story can I tell that might be interesting to people? And but I didn't want to be, the one who gives lessons, because I don't think that I have these high level achievements yet, or not all of I haven't covered all the topics that are possible. So I try to invite people from different creative fields. You've been also one of my guests from different
Yes, yes.
countries.
I love my title, by the way, the prosperity through design. That was amazing.
Yeah, I try to make this not so clickbait, but catchy titles that represent the guest, and to have this conversation with people from different countries and explore what was their own background and see what are the possibilities. And if somebody get inspired, for me, it's already a success. And I like it to be international, so that we discovered backgrounds from different continents, different countries, and see that we're not so different.
So I would like to know this process of creation, and I would like to that this conversation walks through that. Do you think that the art or architecture, can be done through a podcast?
Well, I think that the podcast is more like, we always pre-plan things. We plan things and then we do them. And the podcast is something that can help you in this planning side of the process, where when you have a lack of inspiration, or you feel stuck, or you feel lost, because every field of creativity, it's very open and it's almost infinite, like you can do also when you graduate from architectural school, you can do whatever. Or when you're a designer, designers are often switching fields and jobs. And this is a podcast that you could listen to get a little bit of inspiration, to get some, to get a start, or to get some starting point, which can be the input to start doing something. Like, so if you only listen to the podcast, you get a lot of inspiration, but people should do practically something.
And I love I love to know the creative process of the different people that you invite, because at the end you sell it well, you say it well. Is a bucket that you go once in a while to grab inspiration so you can create new things. And I think that this is related to the creative process of all the people, because uh, architects, people that make art, people that make social content, podcasters, etc., etc. All these people live in a constant creative mode, that they live basically to create new things one and over and over and over again all days, and basically they live from through that. And sometimes this can be very tiring. I would like to know, what is your creative process to create new things?
Well, what my guests have told me what is their creative process, and everybody is different, and everybody have a different background and different path. But most of them have two common grounds, which is obsession. And obsession means it's not negative. It's just they got so much into their field that they got lost into it, and they become experts by having these periods of their lives where they will be just constantly doing and thinking about their craft. And the other thing is discipline, if you want to say consistency. So to never stop despite the difficulties and just break through the walls, because when you start something new, it's always difficult. And in my creative process, as an architect, I try to analyze the situation of the building site, and then through the factors that I gather in this research, start turning the design into a response to all the problems that the site and the client, for example, gives me. The creative process of the podcast, for me, the main thing is to be consistent. So I'll be releasing one podcast a week, no matter what. If I go to holiday, I would have all the podcasts pre-recorded before I go to holiday, so that no matter what, the audience goes on Monday on Spotify or any other platform they use to listen to podcasts, and they will find a new episode.
That's amazing, because I really admire that consistency that you have been allowed to create it yourself, and that alarm basically that is telling you, hey, you need to be that good all the time, and all the time you need to be consistent. And I think that that's a very good skill to that creative process. I was reading that the good creators have the capability to connect links with different experiences or different fields, and link that between their work, and that skill allow them to create new things. For example, I link how nature works and to true, and and I inspire in all those processes how nature works and translate into the architecture. What do you think that is the one of the most important skills that a creative people should have? You say one, two. You say consistency, and then in what
Obs-
other skill do you
obs-
would like to add in that bucket?
yeah, yeah, obsession, discipline, and I would say that people should be have what for me it's important is the ability to link theory in practice, which means a good creative is educated, so which means you read books about other from other creatives. I would suggest books from architects, designer, graphic designers. And about creativity, I like the books that Bruno Monari wrote. He is an Italian designer and professor. He's been professor in the US too. And there is a very interesting breakdown in his books about the creative process and what are these linkings operation by contrast, by scaling, by there are infinite possibilities. So for me, another great skill that a creative should have is to go into theoretical books or websites and not stop on the cover or on the pictures, but really read about the content and what's been the creative process, and then learn from it and interpret it and translate it into his own craft. Although sometimes in the modern media world we don't have very especially on the internet, in the regular online magazines, in my opinion, we don't always have some insightful content. It looks more like a catalog
Yeah.
of works without real. We have all the diagrams. We have, for example, there are great websites where we have also different creative fields which are broadcasted, but there is no a dive in, and that's why I think it's great to have a podcast nowadays, and I see that more and more creatives are starting their own podcasts because this is a conversation which is casual, like we're doing right now, where you can where you can see the real face of the people behind those designs and the work. And I think it's the modern way of influencing the the creative world, because if you think about it, in back in the days, creatives, authors were people which are currently the modern influencers. They were like really also active politically, and active socially, so defining what are the values of society. Like in the 1920s, then there were Le Corbusier, Mies van der Rohe, there were Fitzgerald. There were so many intellectuals also traveling through Paris, Berlin. Now we have the internet. We're interconnected. We can do a podcast, and yeah, you can do it pretty much anywhere. And it's important to spread a message, to broadcast it, create a community where we share this knowledge, and then people can get this knowledge and put it into practice. And this is also the my mission, is to have my mission as a podcaster is to create more accomplished creatives, because more accomplished creatives means more good design around us. And
Yes.
as your podcast was named, good design brings prosperity,
Yes.
no matter where you are. So this is the mission of my podcast, and I try to do it through other creatives which are above me somehow. I try to put myself down, look them up, and share with others.
That's amazing, and that's very is it allows you to understand the world in a sense that you look into one specific field and you fill it out with more information, with more creativity, and you're contributing into the world in a such a way that you are part of the change of the world. And I would like to know about the creativity. In a sense, what do you think about this? Is part of the human behavior being creative, or is most a personal reconstruction in our life moments that allow us to understand a different way life? And basically, to rephrase this, is we born with this, or we basically construct this into our lives?
I think we evolve into it, and it's now part of our brain. We have the creative brain, and we, as a species, as a human species, started developing by changing the environment around us and by transforming materials into objects, and these objects empower our human body, which has limits. And I think we are born with it, and then I think you can see it in kids, for example, because every kid is creative. What a kid does, the kid draws something or makes something and gifts it to its parents. So I think we have this instinct, but it's really important to not lose it along the way when we grow up. I don't say that everybody should be creative, but I think that you can see that everybody somehow are affected by creativity, no matter who you are. even if you're not a professional, you would go sometimes into even if a nice museum, or even if you want on a lower level, when you go into a nice restaurant, a nice cafe where you get a nice interior design, or even the plate itself, if it's made in a nice way, it's cooked in a nice way, everybody get influenced by that. And I think beauty of creativity, it's like a cure, you know. Me personally, when I go and visit a museum somewhere, I get like sort of energized, inspired. You see that the whole
Yeah,
place, it's made to make you enjoy creativity. So I think it's part of us, actively or passively, but it's part of us.
for sure, for sure. I think that places, us as an architects, we believe that spaces are symbols that can share stories, that can share energies, that can share moments. And I would like to go to one phrase that I really like, that is from Max Magwood, the one that wrote the Innovator book. And it says, Innovators make the previously impossible possible." And there is a funny story behind this, because I have an alarm that I wake up every day that say, uh, "Today you can make something impossible." And that I always, all the mornings, I basically laugh with that, how I push myself into a process that I can achieve the impossible things that the world can offer to us. In your perspective, how you can program your mind to be creative in a such a way that you can achieve impossible things. Do you see something in the experience that you had in your podcast, some experience that or some creators that have give you the secret to achieve impossible things that the humanity haven't been able to create? Have you?
Well, I think, yeah, through observation. I mean, as soon as you achieve something that has been impossible, becomes possible. So I think all the things that we achieve are possible. Yeah, I think that there are like some common characteristic of achieving something great, let's say, which is, first of all, don't take yourself too seriously. All my most successful guests were in some yeah, they didn't took themselves very seriously, especially now when they're successful, whether when they started. And the other thing is to be okay into sucking in the beginning, like, you know, that
Yes.
learning, it's a hard process, and be aware of that. And have a value, have a core value. Don't do it for the money and for the glory. Have some goal bigger than you, something that you care about, and be consistent. And then I think it's like, you know, a drop that drops in the same spot. If you're being consistent and you have this constant research into that goal or into that field, you'll achieve something, but it's not gonna come overnight. I think a lot of people see successful figures, I don't know, in the field of architecture. You can think about Bjork Ingels, you can think about now we have more broadly Elon Musk, and those people are very successful. But if you look at their background, this successful has built up through a lot of years. Even if you go on the podcast again, like if you look at Joe Rogan, he wasn't successful since the beginning. He just did so many episodes that, you know, it's like really this erosion method. It's
Yes.
like water erodes rocks through centuries. And I think that everybody who want to try to achieve something great, nothing is impossible. If you think all the successful people are human beings, nobody's better than you, nobody's worse than you. Just find your core value and work consistently on it. This is what I've learned from all my guests.
That's amazing. That's a great advice. And what do you think about Joe Rogan? Because I can see that he's a great inspiration for you. And I think that Joe Rogan, in my personal opinion, is the best podcaster in the world, and also is a great guy that you can talk with. It's like I wish I have a coffee with this guy. It's possible that he has so many good conversation that one day he said, "Hey, I need to record this. It's too it's too good to talk with me." So, what is for you? What's the best? And even if you have something that you consider is the worst, share with me. What is the best and the worst of Joe Rogan?
Well, I think that I found him inspiring because the first time I saw his podcast was actually with Elon Musk, and I was fascinated of this bold guy with bunch of tattoos, very jacked, and having Elon Musk on. And I was thinking, who is this guy that can achieve this goal to have 3 hour chat with Elon Musk? And then I started listening to all the other podcasts. I mean, not all of them because there are too many, but nowadays, when I wake up, if in the last few days I didn't see any new podcast, I just go on Spotify and check that there is something new. And if there is nothing for a few days, I get pissed off because I really love to listen to his podcast.
Yes.
I think the best is that he somehow it's been showing the way in which probably also traditional media slowly gonna evolve, which is we don't want anymore these scripted shows, like we want something that's natural, we want the real deal. And he's done like now he's an established media, so to say, because everybody who promotes a new movie, a new book, try to get on that podcast because it has such a wide exposure. I think that the best is that he has this also long form conversation, which on the same time is the worst because sometimes there is a lack of debate. So the risk is when you listen to this podcast is that if you get very polarized figures separately in these 3 hours, everybody could convince you of their own like conventions and values, because there is nobody from the other side that can contrast them. And I've noticed that when they did a podcast about the movie Game Changers, which was the movie about veganism on Netflix, and they did one show when they debunked the veganism, and you will be like, okay, being vegan is totally stupid. And then they did a second podcast where they invited the guy from the movie, and then they did a debate, and you saw how much bias could be in a like long form conversation. But I think that it's a great podcast just to open your horizons, and you shouldn't take everything completely seriously. And the end of the day is entertainment. So I think those are the great and the worst sides of that show.
And yes, actually, my first time seeing Joe Rogan was with Elon Musk, and I think that that episode with Elon Musk actually became a meme when he pulled out
The joint.
yes, and start smoking. Like, come on, it's so relaxed environment that you can do that. And actually, Joe Rogan has a contract right now with Spotify that basically he sell his soul to Spotify and of 100 million of dollars. And I think that this environment of podcast is the future of entertainment. And I think that it's great how you can convert something as that you consider as a hobby into a business model. Right now, for me, for example, I don't give a shit if no one listens to this podcast. I'm having a good conversation with you and I'm having a good time. And that for me is everything that I am looking into this format. But is my content is good and my conversation are attractive that people can hear, you can make this business model for your life. What do you think is the good next step that a podcaster should have to be able to monetize his content. The last podcast I have it with Bless Arc. That is basically a guy that is an architect from the India, and he quit his job to be a YouTuber. So he lives now 100% of create content. And I was like, wow, man, that's amazing. That's really admire how you can quit your job and dedicate all your life to create content. And, from your perspective, how you can make that with podcast, how you can monetize podcast in a way that you can earn good money with this.
Well, you're asking the question to somebody that's not living on his podcast yet. But I would say that what I decided to do when I started the podcast is to take it very seriously, as I was getting money from it and be very professional with the organization. So, as I said, my goal is that, of course, I have a lot of fun by talking to all these people, and I'm the biggest value is that I get all this education basically for free. Now it's like hundreds of hours because
Yes.
we're like over 60 podcasts, and with great people. And I want the guest, when the guest is invited, that it's invited in the most professional way and it's easiest for them and for me, and they feel comfortable. And I want that the audience gets an episode every single Monday. Like you're like a TV show. When you turn on the TV, you expect a certain program, and yeah, to take it very professionally, and yeah, and be consistent and take it long term. So have a long term plan. Like you won't be great since the first podcast. You'll need some times to figure out the technology, to figure out how to talk to people, and you'll make this little steps, baby steps of improvement every
Yes.
each number of episodes. And yeah, and then I think that at some point you can transition slowly from being on your job into broadcasting. I think, in my personal opinion, I wouldn't love to do only a podcast in my life. I think it's a great way of side income or passive income, if you want to say. And yeah, and this is, for example, something that creatives should think about, because as creative, you sell your time, which is a limited good.
Yeah.
So you have 24 hours a day, and you don't want to be working 24 hours a day because you want to spend time with your family, with your friends, with your dear
Yes.
ones. So you should create some content, maybe books, a video, podcast, something like that. It's up there, and even when you sleep or even when you're not doing some work, you get these side incomes that um, keep your back straight, so to say. Yeah, but as I said, this is not my podcast has some few bucks so far as an income, because we have a Patreon, and the Patreon is mainly because I've invested money into technology, and yeah, figuring out how it works. And I try to improve the product every day, like the audio, and I'm working on transitioning as on a video format as you're doing. So yeah, I think take it professionally. Even when you don't get money, think like you weren't getting
Yes.
money, and take it seriously.
For sure. And one of the things that I will say when you invite me to your podcast, it was the presentation of how you invite people. It was really cool having, because the one thing you don't know, this guy sent basically a guidelines and advices for podcasts that was super professional document, and also a very good invitation letter with a lot of the topics that you're going to discuss, and a lot of very good graphic image. Beside that, you have a web page that is very cool, very professional, and all your, and in that consistency that you put every Monday is really admired. So it's great that you can take that into your creative process in a such a way that you force yourself to be very good all the time. And I, And one of my experience with the podcast, and because I have two podcasts, one is this one, the Architecture for the Soul, that basically is talking about conversations and through surrounding architecture. They are very deep conversation with cool architects around the world. And the other is basically more open to discuss conversation that people that is changing the world, that is called the Epicenter podcast. And I'm, I wish I can be so consistent as you. I wish I can do it. Uh, but one thing that I observe in this podcast is that probably you don't know who is listening. A few days ago, one of the a big investor, a millionaire investor, came to Roatan, the place that I live in Honduras, and basically he was talking to me that he knew me from the podcast. And I was like, he was like telling me all my stories. Like I was trying to present me, and he was filling all the blanks. And I was like, I'm Max. Yeah, I know Max Medina. Well, yes, I'm an architect. Yeah, you work with Lava and Prospera. I was like, yes. How do you know all this stuff? Because I follow you in your podcast, and I was like, wow, how a guy from the other part of the world is basically know your life. And I was like, wow, that's truly cool when you share experience in a such a way that people are listening in a way. Georgi.
Well, yeah. I first of all, I have to shout out my girlfriend Desiree for the website, and she also helped me a lot through creating this process you mentioned. We have
Yes.
to invite our guests and to make them feel appreciated. And I think that, when I started thinking about how to do this, I think it's if you go to a guy that you don't know, because 90% of the guests I don't know personally, and just tell them, hey dude, like, you want to do a podcast, and you don't be like serious, they will be like, who are you? How can I trust you? So you make them feel wanted, and you show that you put some effort into creating this specialness for them. And I think, yeah, this is the great thing of the podcast, that yeah, I don't know every single listener. I know how some stats I know. And I always tell the listeners or whoever listens that they're I'll be glad to if they contact me and they get in touch with us. And yeah, this is the great thing that all my guests, my podcast lasts at least 1.5 hours, but often it's two. And all the guests say, oh, this is a very long conversation, I don't know what I'm going to tell you for that long. And then we do the conversation, and 99% of the people say, oh, this was like, it's already done, like we finished. And yeah, it's a complex, like they're the people that are on the podcast, they're complex figures yourself, like you have so much background. And if I have to do this in 15 minutes, I wouldn't take out the whole story and the whole background. And this is what I want to differ from the regular media, is that I want to ask you questions about your life, about how you did what you did. Because sometimes, people say like, okay, this guy achieved this stuff, but he must have had a lot of money, or he has have
Yes.
some
Yes.
connections. And I ask those questions to the people. Like, I don't go that directly maybe, but I'll be like, what is your background? How did you finance this thing that you did there? So that this is the powerful thing of having a new form of a media, that it's direct and it's not no bullshit, as I like to say.
Yeah, and basically you're creating a platform that allow the connect to the people in it. And if you're seeing like through an architect, you create spaces, artificial and digital spaces through intangible things that allow to creators can connect themselves and with people to inspire in a such a way that can allow a creative process for different people. Uh, Give me your top three of the person that you would like to invite to your podcast. Give me dream with me.
Well, if you have asked me these questions before, I would have like had very straight up answers, but now it's more like I have fun with every guest that comes on the podcast, and I get surprised very often. I think I have the feeling I have my personal interior belief that I'm gonna manage to get Bjork Ingels on the podcast at some point, maybe for some special episode, maybe the 100 or something. We have something. We have something in mind to create a very original invitation for him to convince him to come over, but I won't reveal the plan. If anyone is listening, just follow the Creative Insider podcast to figure out what will be that invitation.
That's amazing.
Um, yeah, I would like to have him on the show, and then I would like to have one of those, I don't know, some of those old school architects, maybe like Renzo Piano and Norman Foster,
Yes.
uh, because I don't know, I would like to see them in a environment which is different for them, and
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, and if I'm gonna be very honest, and they're not gonna be around forever, so.
Yes. Man, I was thinking the exact same thing with Norman Foster. Come on, it's a guy that basically has more life than me. His Instagram page is one of the best things that I've ever seen in my life. He is very old, and he looks you feel that he is so young when you feel his feet and you feel his experience and the way he talks. And I don't know, I personally, that Norman Foster is in my bucket list.
Yeah,
Young
he's
Angles
also
too.
he working. Norman Foster. A lot of people don't know that, but he's a cancer survivor, and that's
Oh, I
fucking
didn't know
crazy.
that.
Yeah, he survived. He had some pancreas cancer. I watched one of the movies about him, and he has beaten cancer, and he is like very active. That's why he's often in Switzerland doing sports. Yeah, he's like very in a good shape.
That's amazing, man. And I would love to contribute to your dream to invite Bjarke. I know Bjarke. I knew it when a trip that I was in New York. I had the experience to meet him. He's a great guy. You listen to him. Is crazy because he has so much good ideas in about different things. He was very kind with me. He even gave me one of his books that he did, and even he put a message. He's a great guy. He's a great guy. I don't talk with him too often, but I talk with him with his main partner in New York, Uwe, and I can share his contact with you, so you can start with that journey to invite him.
We're not in a hurry. Like I like to every podcast. If the people go check it out, the number it's not 1 2 3, but it's like 0001, because as I said when I started the podcast, I was like, we're gonna get 2000, so let's start with 001. And yeah, we're not in a hurry, but I have this feeling that some way or the other we're gonna be consistent and we're gonna be persistent, and we're gonna find the right way to get him. If you put a good word, it's for sure nice of yours, and I'll be very thankful. And I think that this would be a great opportunity because there is a lot of material about him on Netflix. There is
Yes, for sure. He's a great
the
guy.
TV show Abstract, and I think people can find it now for free on YouTube. That episode. There is the movie about him, the official documentary. And I've watched all of this stuff, and I think that if he ever comes to the podcast, we'll find some cracks in between the stories that will be way more interesting um, for the audience, and it will be the occasion to ask him all the questions that have been left unanswered in all the content that has been already created about him.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. Hey, Georgi, thank you for this lovely conversation. I really enjoyed this conversation. Unfortunately, it has to end. However, I would like to say goodbye with one question. If you have the opportunity to put any message, an image, or any song, whatever you want, in all the billboards in the world, what it will be for one day, what it will be.
Oh, that's a good question. I'll put something Bulgarian because I'm from Bulgaria, and it's a small country, and I'll put it everywhere so that people know about this little beautiful country in Eastern Europe, which is on the crossway between East and West. Yeah, like there are some traditional songs from Bulgaria which I would put because they're also on the, I don't know, I think it was the Voyager or something like a satellite they sent through space with a disc of gold with the best human creations, and that song is on that disc. And yeah, I'll put something Bulgarian on that billboard for sure. I don't know exactly why. Maybe the Bulgarian flag would written Bulgaria.
That's amazing, Georgi. Hey, Georgi, thank you so much. And the one that are listening, come on, if you get to this part of the episode, we are almost friends. So go to the Creative Insider, go follow him, go to my channel, go follow me, subscribe. We are almost friends. Reach us, talk with each other, and let's create something new. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Max. Bye bye.